Russia's invasion of Ukraine has inspired people to seek out creative ways, including deploying their skills to raise money for relief. One charity uses our love of food to raise funds for families and children who are impacted by the war. Cook for Ukraine encourages restaurants and food lovers to cook more Ukrainian dishes and give a donation. It was founded by a pair of Russian and Ukrainian chefs based in London who then partnered with a global UNICEF initiative. I'm pleased now to welcome two of those people leading the initiative, Alissa Timoshkina, one of the chefs, and Layla Yarjani of NextGen London to Quicktake. Thank you so much, both of you, for coming here and speaking with us. Alissa, let me start with you because you are one of the chefs. You were attending a protest against the war with your friend Olia Hercules when you guys came up with this idea to cook for Ukraine. And Olia is the Ukrainian chef, you are the Russian chef of the pair. Can you start by telling me why food is such an effective way to make a statement against the war?
Well, food is love, simply put, and food is the language that both Olia and I speak. And it was so natural that we would come together and use food as our language to speak out against this invasion.
And you have said that as a Russian, you felt this tremendous sense of guilt and horror at the invasion, and that kind of drove you to this place of looking for ways to contribute. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Of course. I mean, I still do feel that, and I'm not the only one. This horrendous event has stirred up so many complex emotions and so many people. And many do reach out to me saying, what do we do with this energy? And that's why Cook for Ukraine is such a wonderful initiative, which allows you to channel that complex and sometimes very difficult energy into something really beautiful and really productive. And I mean, cooking is such a beautiful activity anyway. I find it extremely grounding. And when you cook for something that actually is going to raise funds for the children in need, that is, the most beautiful way of take action in this very difficult time.
Layla, I want to bring you into the conversation here. How do people cooking Russian and Ukrainian recipes help support those who are in Ukraine trying to get through this devastating war? Walk us through the mechanics of this.
Yeah, so the mechanics are very simple. If you are an individual at home, we're asking folks to organize dinners and invite their friends and family. And in lieu of bringing a gift or some wine, we're asking folks to suggest a donation. If you're a restaurant, then we are partnering with 250 restaurants in the UK so far. And we're actually just launched in the US this week, and we're asking restaurants to offer an option for diners to opt in to a donation. And all funds are being channeled directly to the charities. So we have links and relationships with our charity partners. And so the donations go directly to those organizations. And that funding then goes on the ground where it's needed the most for a number of different projects that are delivering very much needed aid to the millions of people who have been displaced.
And Layla, how much money has been raised so far?
We have raised just shy of £600,000, which is about $800,000.
Pretty remarkable here. Alissa, I know that before there was Cook for Ukraine, there was Cook for Syria that you were also involved in to raise money for Syrian refugees. How is Cook for Ukraine different or similar to Cook for Syria?
Well, Cook for Syria was a huge inspiration to me, and that's what gave me the idea of Cook for Ukraine. And the guys behind the campaign are absolutely brilliant in engaging the food industry in such a productive way. In a way that it's different. Of course, Cook for Ukraine this time has two chefs who represent the opposing sides of this horrible conflict. And to me, this is really at the heart of this campaign, that we project a message of unity. And it's very natural. Both Olia and I have been friends for over 15 years, even before we were chefs, and worked in food and food writers. So it's the most natural thing for me that Cook for Ukraine at the heart is about the friendship between Russia and Ukraine. And of course, it's about Russia and Ukraine coming together to raise the funds to help the children and their families.
Yeah, and in fact, you and Olia, who have been friends, as you mentioned, for years, hosted fundraising dinners as well back in 2015 after Russia invaded Crimea. Were you raising money at the time? And I wonder what kind of reception you got back then.
Well, We did do some fundraising events indeed, and that was our first time that we came to cook together, actually, and again, sadly, under such devastating circumstances. Perhaps back then the response was not as strong as now, and of course, the kind of context of the conflict is quite different. But it's very important to me that our careers as chefs, as food writers, and kind of our new level of friendship began precisely by doing important charity work and by raising awareness about Ukrainian culture and by raising awareness about Russia's political dangerous stance towards Ukraine.
Yeah. Layla, as someone who thinks about how to raise money, raise awareness for tragedies around the world, what surprises you the most about this idea of sitting down to break bread with someone, the act of preparing a meal and eating, whether it's a home-cooked meal or at a restaurant, that can expand someone's horizon or really open up their point of view?
I think food brings us all together, and it's something that everyone can agree on. There's a really great example, and Alissa, you'll have to correct me, of a dish, which in where I'm from, originally Iran, we call it pirashki, and it's a dish that you see in different variations in different countries in the area. And I think it just goes to show that, food translates cultures. There are certain dishes that we all share, and restaurants and the dinner table is where communities and families come together. And that's something that we can all agree on is bringing together our commonality and our humanity. And it's something that we saw when we launched Cook for Syria as well, that it doesn't matter where you stand on the issues. At the end of the day, we all are standing for the humanitarian impact at the heart of this crisis.
Alissa, I keep referring to you as the Russian chef of the pair, but I understand that you also have some Ukrainian roots, and this is not unusual for a lot of Russians to have Ukrainian roots. Do you think that Cook for Ukraine is something that would resonate for a lot of folks who are inside Russia as well?
I'm sure it would. It's just heartbreaking that we're unable to share the campaign there. But of course, as you said, so many Russians have Ukrainian roots and Ukrainian relatives. Same goes for Ukraine. And it's been my dream to invite my friends, chefs and food writers in Russia to take part. But of course, at the moment, it's completely impossible.
Yeah. We talked a little bit about this idea that there's this culinary language that is so powerful and binds Russia and Ukraine together. Is there any one dish, Alissa, that you think the Ukrainians cook better than Russians, that you prefer the Ukrainian version of over the Russian version?
Well, yes, and I'll make it perhaps less political by just saying that my Ukrainian grandmother, the way she cooked it, that's my favorite version, and it's of course borscht, the very famous Ukrainian and Eastern European beetroot soup. And to me, my Jewish Ukrainian grandmother's version is always the most special one.
And how does she cook it versus how is it cooked in Russia?
Well, actually, borscht in Ukraine is just the most fascinating phenomenon because it's super seasonal and also super regional. So if you travel around Ukraine and try different versions of borscht, you probably wouldn't even realize that you're eating the same soup. Whereas in Russia, borscht is tend to be cooked in more or less similar way, and it's always uses beetroot. Whereas in Ukraine, you can have borscht without beetroot and using different meats, as well as making a vegetarian version. But the way my Ukrainian grandmother cooked it, she would always make it very hearty. And I come from Siberia, so a hearty soup is definitely something that we would very much enjoy. And it would have a lot of fat. It would be fried vegetables with very rich beef stock. And she would also pound some cured lardo, which is called salo, at the end with garlic and fresh herbs. So this is my favorite version.
All of that sounds pretty amazing. Layla, can you give me a sense of what the money that you're raising is being used for so that people have an understanding of how that money is deployed?
Absolutely. So the money that we have raised has been used to send 85 trucks carrying 858 tons of medical supplies, warm winter clothes, and daily supplies, safety kits. We've also been involved with the funding of the Blue Dots, which are sort of the one-stop shop for folks who are fleeing And each blue dot serves 5,000 people a day, and folks can stop here for information, for rest, for warmth, for Wi-Fi, for food. UNICEF is also providing psychosocial support, and that's counseling services to folks who are coming out of these really devastating situations as they're transitioning into neighboring countries.
Got it. Got it. Thank you for explaining that. Alissa, I want to end with you because food inflation is a big issue for so many families right now, wherever in the world you are. Is there any recipe that you would recommend or any dish that you would recommend that is more cost effective than others so that those who do want to give money and raise funds for families in Ukraine can do so with the most power that they can? The best way that they can, spending as little as they can to prepare the dish, but raising as much money as they can.
Absolutely. I think both Olya and I have a passion to make cabbage popular again and make cabbage through Eastern European cuisine popular. So, of course, cabbage is the most accessible vegetable possible, perhaps. And the most amazing meal that you can cook with it is called holubtsi. It's very similar to dolma, Middle Eastern dolma, where you use cabbage leaves and then you stuff them with rice and mushrooms. That would be the most cost-effective version. And then you poach them in a tomato sauce with sour cream and fresh herbs. If you want to use meat version, you can also use beef mince. So you fry the beef with a bit of onion and garlic, add some mushrooms and rice, and then roll them into the leaves and then poach that in the tomato sauce. And if you serve that with a big dollop of sour cream and some rye bread, then you will never say that cabbage is boring.
Yeah, and whoever has that, it's a very complete meal, it sounds like. Alissa, thank you so much. Alissa Timoshkina and, of course, Layla Yarjani, both of whom are from Cook for Ukraine. Really appreciate your joining us and explaining everything. And, of course, you can join the movement by hosting your own Cook for Ukraine Supper Club or Big Sale and by donating directly to their Just Giving page.